we've got a very short time for a Q&A, so if speakers would like to come forward.
The Japanese city was Toyama, is that right? Which nearly got it right. Some of the principles there seem to be something that would apply to just anybody in general, the integration and the barrier-free access and so on. Was there any evidence that other age groups were taking advantage of some of these facilities?
Yeah, of course. I think a lot of the changes that they made just created a really nice environment in the city. So it was really nice for me to spend time there too. The thing that they've really focused on is knowing that their residents are much older, and they also have an issue with kind of brain drain, lots of people moving to Tokyo on the opposite coast. So they do have a very large number of older residents in the city, so it's primarily focused on making their environment better. But the changes that they've made, I think, are for the benefit of all. And particularly now that they've moved on to looking at how to create a sustainable city in the future with rain gardens and the resilience of the whole environment, will go on to produce better results for everybody. In the report that I've done for this, it also outlines extra things that they did in Toyama. There was so many things that they integrated, things to do with the economy, providing work for people that have retired that might still want to work or that might want another income. So it was really wide-ranging. They looked at so many different things and was really just focusing on the large changes that they made to the city to change that kind of sprawl and the social isolation that came with that. Thank you.
Pretty much to all of the board, with regards to professional practice, have you found that there's a conflict between the principles of like designing for dementia, for example, in a city situation with publications such as Designing Streets, you know, where you see the introduction of sort of like modern thinking into design, and that causes confusion where older people are possibly more used to a traditional street design?
I think the vital thing in designing streets is that there is good wayfinding, which can be things that you remember rather than signposts, and plenty of places to sit. And avoiding sharp changes of level and making sure that crossing points work. And having some degree of familiarity so that for somebody in an area there are things that they are comfortable with. I think that kind of traditional approach is important, and a lot of people simply do wayfind by things that are there, objects like, for example, I live in a house with a big white multi-stem birch tree in the garden, so if somebody's coming to visit, I don't mention the number, I say, oh, it's the house with the big white birch tree in the garden. People wayfind that way, but it is vital to have good signposting, because sometimes it's so poor and the lettering's too small. And there's no doubt that for multicultural societies, having simple, clear lettering, upper and lower case, because it's easier to read for people with poor sight, and a symbol can vastly help, because not everybody can read writing. So that, I think those sort of things are important. So I don't think there should be a conflict if you're understanding who you're designing for.
And presuming Designing Streets will have consulted a variety of groups to produce that document.
Yeah.
I would say so.
I think cycleways are another issue though, and I'm also on the Edinburgh Access panel, and one of the things we've been looking at recently is what is the preferred method of cycle paths and pedestrians and streets. And actually the consensus was that they should all have separation by a raised separating element. So there's a lot to be learned in that too.
One more question. Thank you. Mark.
I want to ask a strategic question and a very detailed design question. For those of you who've watched Made in Scotland by Billy Connolly, you've seen that he pointed out the fact that taking tenements down in Glasgow and moving people out to Drumchapel without community was a disaster. And you said it very well. So my first question is, at a strategic level, what can the government do to rebuild and construct and design communities? Because there's too much separation in types of development. Housing developers, commercial developers, they're all separate bits and not together. The second question relates to Annie's very detailed work. Scottish Parliament, widely regarded fantastic building. For me, it's the most disastrous building to walk through. Precisely because of what you say. The thresholds, the changing texture, the colours, etc. How can we get architects, landscape architects, to actually design properly to address this issue? So it's both a strategic level question and a very detailed design. How can we persuade ourselves to design differently?
Start with the strategic one first. Does anyone want to tackle that, Matt?
Yeah, I'll go first and then. So you're right. So the slum clearances, I think, is a really good example. So the intention was good. So the intention was all these slums, inner city slums in Glasgow, inner city Glasgow, no access to toilets, horrible places to live, but a really, really strong sense of community. And what they did was they ripped down these slums and basically moved people to these 4 peripheral housing estates in Glasgow. And what that did was gave them nice houses to live in, but it ripped apart that social fabric. And that was part of the reason why I was highlighting we've got this vulnerability now. So we created these wastelands, these deserts on the periphery of Glasgow with no access to services, no social contact, etc., etc. So I think that's the problem. I suppose the solution is a lot more difficult. So you can't just pull it all back together again. So they tried that with the New Towns programme. So again, creating these new towns and just putting people together again wasn't a particularly, I don't think, radical solution. It certainly didn't help. I suppose it's just about trying to design communities that have all of these different elements of place that we know work well. So different tenement types, access to services, have nice green spaces. So I suppose it's just thinking about all of the things that make places healthy and making sure that we look at place in the totality, and it's not just about 1 or 2 bits, and that's exactly what we're trying to do through the place standard.
And also about not working in silo organisations, working across the board, which is yet again place principle, and what we're going to be looking at in terms of Scotland's Landscape Alliance, getting those organisations
to work together. It's a very good
together.
question, I don't think it's well joined up at a strategic government level. So we've got housing folk doing housing stuff, we've got environment stuff doing environment stuff, and nobody's really taking that big picture. Your spatial planners doing spatial plan stuff, and nobody's really taking that big holistic place-based approach.
There was a TED talk recently, and it had a graph that showed that one of the key thing for living a long life was sociability, socialising with people. It be all the things about what you eat, what you drink, whether you smoke, whether etc., etc. It was having social contact. And the problem is we're building all these wretched housing estates on the outskirts of Edinburgh with limited bus routes, no shops, and there's no community. There's no reason to go out and meet people. And I think we need a fundamental rethink about how we build housing in this country, on the general level. I think coming back to the details side, it's all about education. I think there's too many architectural practices, in my own personal view. It's not based on research, but who want to do what I call signature design, which is fine as long as you've taken into account people, their shape, their size, and how they move and what they need. And too many don't. However, I do think the actual Parliament chamber at Holyrood is one hell of a lot better than Westminster.
Well, it's different in the difference in age there.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to add there? Unless anybody's got any... Oh, Sue? Yeah, okay.
Well, I would like to suggest something that happened to me as a young professional was actually having to go out with people in wheelchairs and push them around for a day. And it was the most kind of shocking experience that I'd had in my professional career, because levels that you just thought, that's 1 in 12, it'll be fine, but they're not. And so that appreciation of actually lived experience of people with different bits of ability, I think is critical. So in our courses and in our work, we should be exposed to these different demands very early on, so that it becomes just part of what we do as designers. And it's the same thing.
A nasty add-on or
Yeah,
interference.
So, you know, if you've had to look at building conversion, and again, working with disability groups, get somebody with a wheelchair to go around, they will be able to tell you all the bits of an existing building that doesn't work and how you need to change the functionality. So I think there's a lot that we can do, but I think at a societal level, we're just not getting a grip. So we need to be making really, really radical changes now. So in our major infrastructure,
Well, maybe this is something
airports, places like that, the provision just isn't there, and it needs to change rapidly because we won't be on top of this.
I think it's maybe something that has to come from our own institute level in terms of getting that out, that as a message, ensuring we cover that and things, CPD, content of courses, things like that. Just pointing at the CEO of the finger. Yeah, absolutely. So
on that point, can I just mention something actually, Rachel, is that at the Northeast branch AGM 2 weeks ago, they also called for it would be a good idea for us to do a CPD day on design for ageing, just as you're discussing tonight. So perhaps in the next year, that's something we could take on and start to actually put some events in place on this very topic for our members. Great speeches tonight. It's well done. Some really great contributions to society.
Could I just underline that we did engage our master's level students in both architecture and landscape architecture very much in this research, and engaging directly with older participants to hear from them their experience and to go around their environment and hear their take on it.
I think that's crucial.
We thought that was absolutely vital to not do it second hand, but have that first hand experience at a crucial stage in their own development and education.
I'm going to wrap it up now for our guest speakers. Can I get you all to have a round of applause for them?